Okay, great. Look at that. It's noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for my lovely guest. It's fine.
Caffeinated. Here I am.
Caffeine, let's do this thing. Right. It's another episode of UnTangled. I am Jen Frazier, she, her pronouns, CEO, founder of Firefly Partners. And we're here to talk about digital, tech, social justice, work. I don't know. With Delia, you never know where the conversation is going to take us.
It can go anywhere. It's an adventure.
Go anywhere. I'd like to welcome my esteemed guest, Delia Coleman, from Equal Rights Advocates, but also just an amazing, badass woman in her own right that we're here to talk about AI, women, gender gaps. What the hell are we doing, people? I loved your topic title, which was we need more than a post-it note strategy in a digital world, which was like, hells yeah. Delia, welcome to UnTangled.
Thank you. You and I have been trying to put this together for so long. It literally took 2 months to handle scheduling. I'm so sorry about that.
No, you're a busy lady, and that we want to acknowledge and say thank you so much for your time here with me and with our listeners, both today live, if you're out there, and later when I share our recording. So Delia, I always like to start the show with a little bit of like time for our guests to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, as we're just talking about a little bit about your journey, how you came to do the work that you're doing today, and just any other color commentary you'd like to throw into the mix today for our conversation.
So I'll keep it brief. If anyone can find me on LinkedIn, my hero's journey starts in 6th grade as I launched a petition to get our recess times changed because I thought they were incredibly oppressive. And I rallied the 6th grade class and then the PTA because of my parents, and got those rules changed. And so that was my first step into advocacy and policy communications. And that's what I've built my career on, in taking the complex and making it easily understood and accessible. I've been a PhD candidate, luckily escaped that. I've been a corporate girly, also luckily escaped that. And now for the past over 20 years or so, I've been in the nonprofit social impact sector doing a combination of public policy, sector protection, and just good old policy communications and making sure our fact sheets actually work. So, and anticipating the transition from fact sheets, like actual paper that people handle, to digital. And it's a wild frontier out there, and I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Love it. I love that story. It's kind of like, we know we're kindred spirits anyway, but I was also, mine took a little longer to, ruminate in my life, but I was the same thing in high school. I did a whole bunch of work in high school that changed and stuff. So love that it was 6th grade, even better. And then you got the PTA involved, loving it. But I love those kind of stories where folks are like, I just knew that I had a place and a voice and some power, even as a young person, to say, like, just because something is the way that it is doesn't mean that's the way it needs to be. And we can, with the right tools and energy, change things. So that's really like, okay, lesson done, boom, done, mic drop, we've got this. So as we are moving into a more digital world, every second of every day, the robots haven't quite come to take away all of our.
We're safe from the robots.
Oh, I know.
I'm just going to be completely honest about that. We're safe.
I think so. I'm a big believer in that. Well, I don't buy into the I don't like to ever call somebody hysterical, because we all know where that came from. I don't like to buy into those sort of wild fantasy sort of freak out moments of like, oh my God, it's only a matter of time, and that's why we need to resist. Have
you seen those video clips of those robots running races? And or the robot testing out how to unpack a plastic bag.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, we're good.
We're fine. We're fine. We're good. But AI is here. It's not going away. So I think the biggest lesson we can, learn and learn to adopt and learn to talk to other people about. Is my big space right now, is getting over some of the hype and the myths and the sort of like weird stories people are telling, and say, no, let's get past the crazy and let's get down to real brass tacks and say, right now, it's another tool. Okay. These are sets of tools right now. It's digital in another slightly different form, but it's not like it's so radically different also from a lot of the things we've been doing for a lot of years. But it's like, okay, great. This is how things iterate. And it's been iterating over the last, however many decades anyway. This is the new iteration. It's like a whoop kind of iteration, but it's an iteration. So how do we best get in the game? I mean, that's the biggest thing. When I obviously spent my career trying to help nonprofits get in the game of digital, do it better, do it smarter, use the tools to your advantage. So this is, to me, just another space where we need to kind of get serious about how we use it efficiently, effectively, strategically.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So we talked a lot in our sort of back and forth notes. A big one that I kind of want to spend some time talking about, you came forward with a lot of ideas around the gender gap. And the gender gap, as we all know who do this work, and obviously this is what you do a lot in your day-to-day work, is real. And sadly, just about every aspect, not every aspect of society, but it's a big problem. Yeah. And in the digital spaces, it's been a problem and it continues to be a problem. And in the AI space, tell us more about what you've been thinking and hearing and reading and learning about the gender gap in AI and how that relates to nonprofits.
So I was not aware until much recently how broad the adoption gap is among women across all industries for AI, and there are different reasons for that. Most women, depending on industry and sector, are probably segregated into frontline or service level jobs that haven't yet been exposed to AI. However, they are probably going to be among the first workers to be impacted because of rapid automation in certain industries and certain segments, particularly service sector industries. Right. And there are a couple of big studies that have looked at this, there's a big study from, I believe, Stanford. There is another big study from Carnegie, and then there is another big study from Yale that look at the economy and the labor force in different macro and micro ways. And so they're looking at it in different ways. But one thing that is coming through broadly is that women, no matter the sector, no matter the industry, use or are exposed to AI at significantly less exposure rates than men. So they are either opting out, we are either opting out of using it, reacting to it and going, no, I want none of that business. I don't know, I don't want it. Or going, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to use it. And I don't even know where I'm overwhelmed. I'm shutting down. And so that is a fact. It is a documented research record fact. And I think for the nonprofit sector or the social impact sector, that's largely powered by women, either in leadership roles or frontline roles, that has immense consequence. Yeah. If women who are frontline workers, program leads, organizational leads are opting out of this, then this puts our impact as a sector at a disadvantage when it comes to scaling, iteration, efficiency. And also something that a friend of mine, Cassie Groenstein, mentioned in one of her talks about AI and the impact sector. If we believe that a better world is possible by moving off the grind, one of the ways to move off the grind is to free up more time. How do we do that? Have we actually done that? Since the pandemic, I do not see anyone around me, least of all myself, freeing up significant chunks of time. I think it behooves us to look at tools that can shave off time as much as possible.
100%. I mean, that's basically my elevator pitch for getting into the AI space right now, is getting rid of sort of the menial tasks that everyone hates to do anyway, and freeing up time to use our better than a robot brains to do the work that it is going to be human and never going to be done by the robot.
No, I do want to make something clear though, Jen, because I want to avoid the blue sky thinking that a lot of tech bros have used in order to push AI on the rest of us, which is like, you will have so much time, the robot will do everything. No, because I have used all of these robots. I call them Chad.
Right.
And I've used all of the Chads, and there are some Chads that are better at one thing than the other.
Right.
Copilot, for instance, cannot put together a visual to save its life.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly have conversations with it going, what is wrong with you? Why is this person sticking out of this bolt? This is not what I asked for.
No.
And it cannot understand what it wants. However, there are other tools out there that if you give it a brief, it suddenly gives you something really wonderful. And for those of us who don't have a graphic designer on the team, who don't have a contract with a graphic designer, would I rather work with a graphic designer? Absolutely. I work with graphic designers all the time. The human touch is fabulous.
Yeah.
But if I don't have a graphic designer on the team, I'm going to create that social graphic for my social media channel using Canva's little handy robot.
We absolutely are. No, and to your point, I don't want to over simplify or over glorify the idea that, oh my God, all of my, junk is being taken care of. To your point, like, I still use the tools and I still haven't shaved off like such immense amounts of time that I'm like, sitting by the pool and drinking a margarita. Lovely as that sounds.
One day, Jen. One day.
That's the, maybe for some of the time, not all the time, because I still want to do the work anyway. But it is an opportunity, I think, though. The threat is real. The adoption gap problem is real. The threat, I think, to the nonprofit and social impact sector is something that I think I hadn't put exactly in the starkest terms that you did when you were sort of bringing your information over in as a preparation for this, like, oh, right. Yes. And I think that ultimately, like, shining a light on that and being real about it. So even if you are a woman executive director, for example, and you're not one of the frontline thinkers, you're hearing it. You're being bombarded right now with also just like, what are you doing inside your organization? You haven't adopted this fast enough. So your exposure to and response to AI adoption is still coming from sort of a skewed lens as well. Obviously, you've got a million priorities happening inside your organization. How do you make time to kind of think about this inside your organization? But the point, though, that saying even within the nonprofit sector, though, the number of female executive directors and CEOs is still less than, more than the typical, it's more than the for-profit industry, but it's still not as far reaching as it should be. And then you're looking at where do women make up the bulk of staff inside organizations. It's generally not at leadership and whatnot.
In the middle and in the front.
Middle and towards the front line. So that exposure and the need to adopt, you're right, is lower. So how do we address this? There's the threat. We know nonprofits traditionally and continue to sort of run a little behind the for-profit sector for a million reasons. Economically, pretty much is front and center there. But then if we're behind already, and then we have AI coming in and there's already a gender gap in adoption, obviously huge impacts. How do we start to look at addressing some of this? Do you have thoughts? I mean, I know you have a lot of thoughts.
I do. Because what I don't want is for an executive director to, whether they've been prompted by a funder or their peers, or they just went to, a conference and they come back to their team, they're like, okay, you guys, we have to do something with AI.
Right.
That one sentence is utterly meaningless.
Horrible.
Because AI underneath it, there are many things
so many columns
coming from it.
Yeah.
And so what do we mean by AI?
Yeah.
Because I would posit that most organizations, whether or not they, one, acknowledge it, two, recognize it, are already implicated by AI.
Totally.
If you use Salesforce, AI is built into Salesforce. Those
Right.
are called automation flows.
Right. Right.
And so automation, whether you are using it in Slack, Salesforce, Blackbaud, any of your database management, any of your communication tools,
Yeah.
Canva has slowly dripped AI into its platform here and there. If you are making video, if you are doing transcriptions of a video, those machine-made transcriptions, that's an AI.
Right.
That's an LLM.
Right.
So what is the tech stack overall in your organization? What are the platforms that you use? What are the tools that you already use that are already incrementally opening up a space for you and your team to move away from, I'm going to manually enter this information into a spreadsheet and then send it manually to someone to look at, and then on and on and on and on and on. Is there a way to shorten that runway? But then also have someone on your team to verify that the runway has indeed been shortened. And so that's another point that I want to make, that this is not the case of, there will never not be the need for a human being.
Exactly.
There will always be the need for a human being, because the human being has the judgment, has the nuance, has the wherewithal to go, that is not really right. But you got to that conclusion faster than I could have. And so now I can spend my time coming.
Yeah. You got to hone it.
Place.
Yeah. Direct.
And so I think overall, your original question, how to approach this issue, is you have to look at it holistically. One, what is your overall organization's position on technology? Are we really going to be running our programs with paper all the time?
Right.
What does that require? How can we be faster? How can we be just a little bit leaner in how we do our work? Not lean so much that it impacts the mission, but lean as in, do I really have to use a fax machine? Is that really what we're talking about, people? No, no, we don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't even have phones in our office.
No. Well, exactly. Like I was actually talking to somebody about this, the equipment that I provide, like my staff, my employees too, is like, we used to have like headsets and phones and like VoIP things and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And be like, no. Like,
you don't need anything. You don't need
watch things move. And same thing. We used to do paper contracts, paper things get faxed, or even like, sign and send a copy, but like all this stuff, you're like, boom, or send a paper check in the mail, like all these things. You're like, so obviously we've all been, moving forward. And I think that the adoption piece here, I think, is critical. And I do think the understanding of like what parts can be sort of automated is really the key.
And that's another thing too. Like one of the things in my own organization, one of the internal conversations that we've had, I and my team, we were one of the first adopters of what people typically understand as AI. One, as an experiment. I was like, okay, instead of sending me a million Slack messages asking, which headline do you like? Let's ask Chad.
Let's ask Chad.
And so that prompted an internal conversation. What are the appropriate places to use Chad? And I think for marketing and communications, where you're talking about using language, creativity, creating email subject lines. I'm like, I have better things to do than to sit at my desk and think of 20 email subject lines to choose
Yeah.
from.
Yes, you
I
do. Yes.
literally do. And so if we can just knock that out really quickly and then choose the best one that fits our goal and purposes, great. You just saved me 10 minutes, Chad.
And
is that 10 minutes important?
Right.
Yeah, that 10 minutes is important because now I can go to the pantry and get a cup of coffee and hang out with my peers.
And that's huge.
That's
and also
important.
10 minutes across, 20 different tasks or things like that, it does add up. Like there's just a little bit and it's incremental. And I think that's the big takeaway. Even like when my conversation last week with Mon, it was like, these are either kind of things you're, like, to your point, already doing. They're small, but they add up to be big, big time savers, but also, just also sometimes you just, get better outputs. So you're like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So you don't want to overthink it. You don't want to rely 100% on Chad's thoughts. So you do need to do a lot of,
Chad gets it wrong.
Obviously you got to question, you got to push back. I think the other thing that I've been learning more and more is the framework that you put in, and you can shape Chad to be more than just Chad out of the box. And I think that's pretty
You really can.
The Gen AI, if anyone can hear anything, that's like my number one takeaway is don't use Gen AI, any of them out of the box. You have to go in and give it a lot of guardrails, understanding of who they are and how they're showing up and how critical they need to be and how much they need to push back on stuff. All these different things that can give you better output.
It's really interesting how, so I lead a couple of different teams,
Mm-hmm.
and I also coach other managers internally and externally. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm always telling managers is you need to be explicit with your direct reports. Correct. What is the ultimate requirement you want when you are delegating a task to your team? Mm-hmm. I approach Chad the same way. What is the requirement? Chad, I need you to take this press release and turn it into a blog post. Mm-hmm. Requirement, it needs to sound like this. Right. It needs to mention these things, and it needs to be under 500 words.
Yeah. So, be very explicit.
Be very explicit. Create the guardrails that Chad needs to adhere to. Mm-hmm. Modify the tone, tweak it, give it information about word use, mm-hmm. Industry, audience, and some of the Chads that I've used, one in particular, the nuance and delicacy of it has really surprised me. It has really, really surprised me. And I'm like, I wonder how this was trained.
Well,
Can
you name names? I know people like to know.
I don't know. Can I name names?
No, you can.
Yeah, it was Claude.
It's Claude. I was going to say, it sounds like Claude to me, because Claude to me is the one that has the most sort of nuance.
Yeah.
The response. And once you train it even more, gives you better, to me.
It really gets super better. It blows me away. And I'm just using the basic package. Right. I'm not even using enterprise level.
Right.
I'm just using the free thing. And I give it hard things. I'm like, take this legal document and create several blog posts from it and put it together for me in a campaign.
That this audience can understand.
That this audience can understand. And then take that same thing and polish it up, reframe it for a donor audience.
Yeah.
Same piece of original content. And of course, I know you put your intellectual property in a thing. How do you know it's going to be safe? Well, I asked it. I'm like, where does this thing go?
Mm-hmm.
And it told me it goes nowhere. It stays right here. Yeah. Now, I think there are some very real, absolutely valid criticisms of this new tech as it relates to privacy, intellectual property. Yeah. And it absolutely, like Adobe, we all know that if anyone is using Adobe Suite for anything, that basically The user agreement is, if you use our tool at all, we are going to be using your product, your content to train our internal tool.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, that's not great.
No.
And yet, that is how we sign our documents.
That is, yes, it's important to read the fine print behind like where and how things are being used. To your point, inside different pieces of software and how you are, what you're agreeing to when you agree to use that piece of software. I know
what I do
agree, blah, blah, blah.
What I do want to say is there was a point at which that was your only choice.
Right.
You had organizations, large or small, you only had one choice to use Adobe.
Right.
Now, the industry is changing rapidly because now that we are aware of all of these valid concerns about privacy, data, intellectual property, et cetera, there are now smaller shops popping up to customize knowledge layers that will basically close your AI.
Right.
You don't need to use Gen AI. You don't need to use Open AI.
No.
What you can use is a closed system that your own data, your own information changes, and it only stays in this space for you. There are rapidly more and more providers coming up with that who recognize that the social impact sector, that is their second biggest concern, along with the environmental concerns, which are also very, very valid.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, the social impact sector can probably use these tools.
Yeah.
However, how can we give these tools to them safely?
Right.
And so they are in the business of providing these safer tools for organizations safely. There are several of them here in the Bay Area where I am, and I am absolutely sure that they are also in other places as well.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really important to think about the ways in which our sector uses this technology and thoughtful and different ways, I think, than the average lay user out in the world who sort of doesn't have those same kinds of concerns. I think those two are the top concerns that I hear about as well when people talk about adoption, and they kind of like, oh, I have concerns. And then I'm like, well, then don't use ChatGPT. Don't use, some of the big, more generic tools out there that are really being made for the mass adoption. That's not where we need to play. And it's not. Right. So get smarter about what works for your organization and your concerns and those types of things. I do think the environmental concerns are being addressed differently, again, by some of the different companies, but it's real, and it is being addressed across the board as something that we know we can't just keep building data centers in Arizona, for example. Let's be smart about this, okay? And we already have a water problem, so let's not exacerbate it anymore with this nonsense. So let's be smarter. And that's, it's been raised, it's being concerned, it's being addressed. It's never going to be perfect, and it is going to be a problem, but we need to be smart about it.
The partners that are trying to help a few of these companies think of this are nonprofits.
Right.
Not environmental nonprofits, racial justice nonprofits, a few of them come to mind, are working in tense partnership with the industry to, one, curb the use of water, move to renewables in order to power these data centers, but also trying to influence the size and impact of these data centers, the location of the data centers, basically what happens within them. Now, I'm not saying that these are not really real issues. They are really real issues. If, however, the sector waits for these issues to be solved completely,
we'll be waiting in vain.
10, 20 years have passed.
Right. And that's not an option. It's not an option. So I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to sort of circle back on a couple of our major themes. I also wanted to just sort of think about this idea and really leave people with the thoughts of like the gender gap is real. I think the idea of like how we as a sector name it, address it, sort of work to correct that as much as we can. I think it's something just leaders of all genders need to be conscious of and think about. And I think the why women leading AI use is the fastest path to a stronger, more sustainable sector line that you had was a really powerful one. And that one I read and it hit me and made me go, ooh, yes. And one I want to sort of figure out in our work at Firefly, even how we put that front and center in the work that we do and how we go out and thinking about where do we need to concentrate our efforts and be purposeful in that work that we go, great, I'm working on AI adoption for my clients because I think it's the right path to efficiency and ways we can help the sector spend more of the human time on the human to human stuff that is so critical. And it's the way we're going. It's the way of the future. But I'm really putting some good thought and energy into like, oh, why we need to think about the gender gap specifically in these spaces of adoption. And I really appreciate you bringing that forward as a topic for us.
I want to add a layer to that because it sounds really pithy when you say it like that. It makes me sound like really smart. And so I'm not going to say no to that. I am really smart. But the why is that important? I think marginalized groups have hidden genius. Women, people of color, people of the global South, there is hidden genius within our communities that have been artificially suppressed by various systems. Putting the tools of innovation, and I do think this kind of rapid iteration is a tool of innovation. Putting a tool of innovation in the hands of those with hidden genius. We know the first people to flag that there were problems, that there were ethical concerns, were women and women of color.
Mm-hmm.
If we can begin to lead with the ethical concerns and start the iteration from there, rather than plopping out a technology and go, oops, my bad, and then trying to like work it back, that's bro tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, make a mistake, try and walk it back. You already released the genie into the world. And now you've created a watershed industry of trying to control the genie that you let out into the world.
Right.
I think if those of us who are concerned about the world, concerned about our communities, can begin to go, you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. Mm-hmm. We can create something that actually does less harm.
Yes.
Begin from that point.
Yes.
And move on from there, move forward from there. I think that there can be real sustainable social change when we take the tools from BroTech and not just use them. I don't want us just to use Chad. Right. I want us to break Chad and create a different Chad.
Exactly. Here. I'm with you all day. I think that there is real opportunity right now in the world for building something different. And I do think we're on the verge of that. And I do think it's important to figure out who's in the driver's seat here and like make sure the right folks are in the driver's seat, which is why you got to learn. You got to get out there. You got to do the gospel. We got to train people. We got to teach people. We got to invite the right people into the room and say, let's put these tools, you're right, in the hands of the right folks and watch what happens. Like it'll be very different if we can sort of get it in the right hands. And I want to make sure that folks are not left behind, as we have seen happen over and over and over again. And I want the social impact sector in particular to seize this moment and do different things and build a different path forward with the opportunities with the technology that we have today. So
I agree.
I'm with you. I love it all day. That was very powerful. Thank you for that ending. I'm going to push that up in the recap of this amazing episode of UnTangled. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Delia. You're always a pleasure to chat with. And I think you're one of the geniuses I'd like to see, motivated. You are. You're very, very
crackpot. It's okay. I don't care.
I'm gonna tout it. It's fine. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna love it, and I'm gonna love on it all day. So there you go. Next week is our last episode of 2025. wow, this is happening. So we're going to do a little holiday wrap up with my friend Drew Daniels, who used to be at HRC and now is the principal of Grit Found, awesome, great consulting agency that if you don't know it, we'll talk more about that next week. But we're going to hear about slaying year end and what's happening already so folks can sort of see what's happening. And we're going to be in our holiday cheer and gear and wrap up 2025 the best we can with as much cheer as we can, turning the page into 2026. So next week, noon Eastern, here on LinkedIn Live. Delia, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully.
Absolutely. Happy holidays.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday.